This front heater hose goes down to the water pump. This rear heater hose goes to the thermostat. In the order of reassembling the belts: water pump, power steering pump, harmonic balancer, and then again water pump, power steering pump, harmonic balancer. Then inside of the alternator to the large harmonic balancer, and then the alternator to the smog pump. Two bolts for the power steering pump, 1, 2, 3 bolts, and 1 nut for the bracket. The bracket goes on the outside of the bracket for the power steering pump. So power steering pump goes on the inside of this bracket. There are 3 bolts that hold this bracket onto the block, and this bracket holds the power steering bracket. Okay, this here holds the bracket for the power steering pump. Take this off, and this is getting unscrewed. And it goes, take a look at that, right up here on the head, driver's side. Power steering pump, this hose on the back goes right here. And then this guy goes this flare nut right here, which I'm going to take off. Okay, this hose right here at this Y that's in front of the carburetor attaches to the bonnet right here. Oops, right here. So this hose, see if I can follow it. Here we go. This hose goes from here to the Y. There. Okay, vacuum line C, right there. C goes from the carburetor right above this automatic choke, right here, comes down and goes to the thermostat housing on the side, not the top, the side, right there. Okay, the vacuum from this thing that goes to the carburetor makes a curl, comes along here, and it ends up attaching to the top line of whatever this thing is on the passenger side valve cover. So this top one, there's 2 lines. The top one goes right to here. Okay, I do not know what this thing here is called, but there are 5 hoses attached to it. Number 1 comes up here and goes to the brake booster. That's number 1. Number 2 goes to this T, which goes all the way back to the side of the thermactor. This one right here goes to the bonnet on the right side, but from the thermactor, this is hose number 2. Hose number 3 comes up to whatever this is right here. There's like a little electrical thing going into the firewall that goes to this thing. This is hose number 3. Hose number 4 okay, hose number 4 goes along here, right here, and attaches to the bottom of this thing right here, which is attached by that bolt over there on the valve cover on the passenger side. So, here we go. Hose number 4. I don't know if you see that. The bottom, boy, that's so tough. From the bottom of this thing, right there, comes along here, right there, hose number 4. Hose number 5 attaches to this T, and this T attaches to the thermostat housing. Again, 1, brake, 2, thermactor, 3, whatever that thing is, 4, to the bottom hose nipple on this thing that attaches to the valve cover, and number 5 attaches to this T that goes to thermostat housing. Okay, vacuum line D goes from the distributor to the middle vacuum line on this thermostat housing. Okay, this line right here curls around and attaches to this metal right here, and this metal piece goes to the back of the transmission. It attaches to a rubber hose on the back of the transmission that attaches to a vacuum pump. So this right here circles around, rubber hose goes right there on top. Get a different angle. There we go. Whoops. It goes right on the top here. There's another one below it, but it goes on the top. Below, top. Okay, this ground right here attaches to the front passenger side of the carburetor, and it goes to this module, which is attached to where I have labeled vacuum line number 1. Okay, this is vacuum line number 2. I've disconnected it, and it goes right down on that nipple on the front of the carb there. Okay, I cannot think of what this is called right now. I know I just can't think of it. But this vacuum line here goes to vacuum line that I've labeled number 3. Okay, vacuum line number 3. This long hose goes to the back of the motor and attaches to the round silver thing that I can't remember the name of. This short hose off of the T on vacuum number 3 goes to this red thing, which attaches right here to this thing, which attaches to the side of the thermostat housing. So side of the thermostat housing, and there's 2 things coming off of it. This one goes to this red thing, goes to the T on vacuum line number 3. Okay, this is vacuum line number 4. It attaches on the back of the carburetor to this metal hose at the top right here. Okay, vacuum line C, right there, C, goes from the carburetor right above this automatic choke, right here, comes down and goes to the thermostat housing on the side, not the top, the side, right there. Okay, vacuum line number 1 that I have numbered, again, it's right here. This plugs into the top of the carb right here, And this goes to the ground right there on the front of the carb. Okay, this here I just pulled out of this top tube on the front of the carburetor towards the front of the engine. It leads to, I think this is a PVC thing right here. It goes on the passenger side on the top of the valve cover. So it goes from right here, I don't know if you can see that, and it comes all the way along and plugs in right there. Okay, this line right here just got pulled out of this hose, which is on the top of the two hoses on the front side of the carburetor. Okay, these two, this one and this one, right here, look the same. Vacuum line number 4, this one plugs into the first connector of this run. Okay? On vacuum line number 2, on vacuum line number 1, this connector right here plugs in to the second plug on this run. Vacuum number 1, this ground goes to the carb here. Vacuum number 4, this ground here goes on the same side but in the rear of the carb. So number 4 is the first plug on the run to this thing that goes to the valve cover. Plug number 1 right here goes to the second plug on the run. And this also, on this run, plugs into the automatic choke. Okay, going to start with the wiring harness backwards. This thing right here, don't know what it's called, attaches to the passenger side top of the valve cover right there. Okay, so it attaches right there on those two bolts. The bottom hose coming off of it, I have it labeled number 4. It goes to this 5-barb vacuum thing right here. The top vacuum hose on this thing goes to the carburetor right there. This right here goes to the choke right there. So this plug that says number 1 goes to this number 1 vacuum line vapor canister right here. This number 4 plug goes to number 4 vacuum line, and this plug right there. As we come up the line, we come to these two plugs, and these two plugs go to the rear of the engine, and they plug in below the EGR valve. We have all of these guys. This guy right here goes to the temperature sensor, which is right there. This yellow cut line goes to the distributor yellow cut line right here. This plug right here goes to the distributor. It plugs in right here. These two coils, wires, slide onto the coil like that. This line that says plug A, I cut up here that says plug A, so these two will need to be spliced together, and this one coming off the top says our coil attaches to the right side of the coil. Okay, this line back here, it comes all the way around up here, and it goes to the back of the cruise control assembly. So from here, it goes all the way back around to where it connects to the chain, the bead chain on the carburetor. This pin right here pushes down and holds this bead clip in between, well, I got another video which beads, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, between beads 6 and 7, this clip, so I just popped it out with a screwdriver. This is the throttle mounting bracket held on by these two bolts. This right here goes to the transmission. It's held onto the carb by an E-clip on the other side. Okay, pull the carburetor off. We've got this gasket here. Okay, in order to get this off and to pull this stud out, this pulled off, and I have a gasket right there. Alright, this gasket goes on the intake, this goes on top of the gasket, this big thick gasket goes on top of this, and then the carburetor goes on top of that. This is a negative ground cable, and it bolts right here. Same with this starter. So the starter cable and the negative ground cable is held on to this by the same bolt right there. Okay. This thing right here screws in below the EGR valve right here. So get closer. EGR valve, whatever this is, screws in right there, and this little electrical or vacuum goes right on the top there. And it's on the very back of this wiring harness. Okay, after I unscrewed this thing here, that this plugs into the back of, I didn't realize that this is just a plug, and this just unplugs like that. Plugs right there. This plug right here goes along this line to the back of the engine and plugs into the transmission. Comes from up there right down here to this plug and unplugs right there, and this goes to the transmission. Okay, this pipe right here attaches to each side of the engine, to the heads, and it's held on to each side by this clip, and they both bolt down right underneath. This clip slides right up, and this just slides right out. Don't know what it's called. Okay, in order to remove this pipe, I have to remove this 1, 2, 3 tree connector. It is on top of the intake manifold, the back of the engine, behind the carb, and the top and the middle one are active. This one right here is plugged. Okay, this is a thermactor. It goes to the back of the engine. This connects to, well, you just have to look at the picture, but this other end attaches to the smog pump up front. This is to the transmission dipstick. This is the bracket. It screws in on the passenger side head. Okay, the transmission tube dipstick. It's very hard to get out of its position. So what you have to do, you have to go in and get this here. It goes in that hole right down there. Okay. What you have to do is you have to take this and you have to go between the lines here. Okay, push it down as far as you can so that the top will clear the dashboard. Then once it does, you can lift it up. Let it really clear it. It's tough. You can lift it up and then put it in the hole that it's supposed, and then put it in the hole it's supposed to go in. So what I did, when I pulled it out, I dropped it down below these lines here, twisted it so it clears the top, and then you can pull it out. Oil filter adapter, 3/4 inch bolt, and this thing faces out like this so it clears the cross member. Okay, the oil dipstick tube was just held on by a nut that goes on this bolt right here. That's attached to the end of the head. Sorry, that's attached into the end of the exhaust manifold that goes into the head. Oil dipstick tube, nut on bolt that goes through the exhaust manifold into the head. Okay, this is the passenger side motor mount. Attaches to the block. Only 3 bolts for each one, and all the bolts are the same size. Okay, the harmonic balancer pulleys, they come as a unit. They're not individual. Okay, there's a thin plate between the water pump that goes here and the timing cover on the outside. Using a putty knife to get between it to pry it off. Okay, taking off the oil pump. 2 bolts on the bottom, one bolt for the bracket. There's a long rod right here. It all lifts out. Okay, I'm going to take out the timing gear. This is the oil sling ring right here, which broke, and I found the other portion of this on the oil pump. But it looks like I've got this one bolt right here that holds the oil slinger, and it may be in the oil slinger, may be indexed right there. I'm not sure, but I'm going to take this bolt off and slide everything out. And of course, as you can tell, the engine is upside down on the stand. Okay, this is the oil slinger. There's 4 parts. This part goes in here. This goes there. This bolt goes there. And this whole unit, which is indexed on the back right there, goes big sprocket on the timing cover right here. Oil slinger. 4 parts, indexed, goes right here. Okay, this timing gear, just little by little, slides right off. There you go. The whole thing slides off as a unit. Well, not as a unit, but put it on together, take it off together. Okay, on the timing gears, the parts that face, the way you know which direction they go, the parts that face the outside have the dots on them that line up. So outside have the dots, the inside no dots. Outside dots, inside no dots. That's how you line up your timing. Okay, going to remove the camshaft now. I'm going to start by removing these 2 bolts and taking this plate off. Try this again. I'm going to remove the camshaft and start by taking these 2 bolts out and removing this plate. Okay, I just removed the camshaft cover plate, these 2 bolts right here. There's a small detent right here on the cover plate. This right here is the top of the engine. That small detent goes on the inside towards the top of the engine. But anyway, I'm going to grab this and see if I can pull out the camshaft. Okay, here's the camshaft part of the way out. Right here. Okay, here's the crankshaft. This goes to the front of the engine. This end goes to the back of the engine. So this end goes in first. Okay, this is number 4 and number 8. Okay, once I broke this nut free on cylinder number 7, it was still difficult to thread. I had to use a breaker bar to unthread it the whole way. Could have used something else, but I couldn't do it by my with just my fingers. Okay. These little guides for the bearings right here, they're on this and they're on this, and they seem to point towards the they seem to orient towards the outside of the engine on every one of these. So here's the wrist pin jig I made out of scraps around the shop. A puller, clamp, 2x4. This is a door off of an old cabinet, and this is a piece of trim board scrap that I just cut the diameter with a jigsaw to match the diameter of my piston. Just put your piston in, have your wrist pin inserted on this half, heat the rod, stick it down, slide it in. What's nice about using this is I can easily adjust it to get the right center for my wrist pin once it's heated, but it holds everything in place. So like for me, it's a one-time deal, so this is just, I'm taking the screws out, it's going back in the scrap pile when I'm done. Hope this helps. Okay, I've already loosened all the bearing caps. They're all numbered. 1, 2, 3, 4, and they have arrows that point towards the front of the engine. The rear main seal does not have a number on it. Okay, and on number 3, the one next to the arrow, 3 arrow stud. Okay, the rest of them are bolts. This one is a stud that goes next to the arrow on number 3, and it holds the oil pump screen neck. Okay, all the caps are off. I'm getting ready to lift the crank out right now. Okay, I just pounded this seal out, this rear main seal, and this tab right here on the main seal was facing towards the outside or back of the motor. You see that little tab right there? Facing the outside. And this taller lip was facing on the inside. Okay, this is the driver's side head. I've got 3 bolts that broke off. There's one, there's one, and there's one. And I tried to tap this one, no luck. I broke off an extractor. Tried to tap this one, no luck. I broke off an extractor. I've got them both out. I haven't touched this one yet. And this one was actually already broken off before I even got to it. So anyway, driver's side head. Okay, this is the driver's side cylinder head. This is the rear of the engine. This is intake number 8, exhaust number 8. Intake number 7, exhaust 7. Intake 6, exhaust 6. Intake 5, exhaust 5. You can tell by the size of the valves, intake is larger than the exhaust. So this is intake 8, exhaust 8, intake 7, exhaust 7, intake 6, exhaust 6, intake 5, exhaust 5.